Welcome back to Everyday Eats with Michelle. Today we're going to make a timbale. My brother showed me how to make this, years ago for Christmas Eve dinner, and it's kind of become a holiday favorite ever since. I'm not sure why it got relegated to special occasion status. I know it looks like it could be a little challenging, a little complicated, but it's really not. It's actually really simple to make. So we're going to walk you through this step by step so you can make it too. Let's get started. First thing we're going to need to do is get 2.5 cups of arborio rice cooking. I usually just toss it in my Instapot, let it do its thing. If you don't have an Instapot or a rice cooker of some kind, just follow the package directions, get that cooked up. Once it's done, we're going to take our rice and spread it out on a rimmed baking sheet and let that cool completely. Very important that it cools completely because it's going to help us make our rice shell later. While that does its thing, we're going to move on to the filling. Now, the original recipe my brother showed me only called for 3/4 of a pound of Italian pork sausage. And it never seemed enough. It always felt like we didn't have enough filling compared to the rice. So I've gone ahead and I've doubled it. I've got just a little over 1.5 pounds of pork sausage. We're going to need to remove these from the casing. What I like to do is kind of find the end, take my knife, give it an extra little slit, and then it usually just peels down nicely. Doesn't always work, but 99% of the time it's going to work. As you can see, my second one didn't 100% work out great, but I'm going to find the end, I'm going to give it an extra little slit with my knife, and then just tear it down, and my casing should come off in one nice big piece. So we're going to work through, get all of our sausage removed from the casings, and then it's time to get moving with this filling. So in a medium to large skillet over medium-high heat, original recipe called for 2 tablespoons of butter. I've now doubled the sausage, so I'm going to double the butter. I'm going to put in 4 tablespoons of butter. We'll get that melted down until it's all nice and foamy. And now we're going to add in a medium to large sized onion, all nicely diced up. I'd go on the larger size because remember, we got a bunch of sausage cooking over there. And then we're going to let this go. I've got 2 cloves of garlic in here as well. Let this go for about 6 to 8 minutes until it's nice and softened, taking on some color. And we're going to add in our sausage. I like to break it up a little bit as I add it to the pan. Just makes less work for me later with the spoon. But get all your sausage down into your onions and butter and garlic, and it smells amazing. And then we're going to break that up with our spoon a little bit more into smaller pieces. Get that mixed in. And we're going to let this go for about 6 to 8 minutes. The goal is to get all sides caramelized, some nice color. It doesn't matter if it's cooked through all the way. It's going to have a bit of simmering to do later, but we do want to get some nice color. Next step, fresh basil. I've got about 1 cup of loosely packed fresh basil, and we're just going to tear this down right into the sausage. If you don't feel like standing here and tearing it, and I totally get it because it seems like it takes forever, you can cut this up ahead of time. Just stack them a couple leaves at a time, roll it up, chop it up, and dump it all in at once. Totally up to you. You do want some bigger pieces though, because as it cooks, it's going to wilt down and it's going to look absolutely gorgeous inside of our filling. But once you've got all your basil added in, give it a stir, get that wilting process started, and then we're going to add in 1/2 cup of tomato paste. This is going to make our sauce nice and rich, helps to thicken it up a bit. We'll get that stirred in. And then we're going to kind of let that hang out, let the flavors develop for about 4 to 5 minutes. Once you've achieved that, we're going to add in our chicken stock. Now, the original recipe called for about 3 cups. I'm only going to do 2 to 2.5 cups because it's looking like I have enough liquid in my pan already. And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, that's a lot of liquid. How is this going to work in my filling? Well, we're going to let it simmer for a good 20 to 25 minutes. And that's going to thicken our sauce up. Trust me, it's going to work out perfect. While that's doing its thing, we're going to prepare our pan. You've got a 9-inch springform pan. Take a tablespoon of butter, and we're just going to spread this all over the bottom and up the sides. We're just greasing the pan as an extra little insurance policy that our rice is not going to stick. Even if you have what you think and what's been advertised as a non-stick springform pan, because that's what this is, make sure you do not skip this step. You want to make sure you get the butter spread evenly over all surfaces of your pan, even down into that little crack where the pan and the sides meet. Once you've got your pan nicely greased up with your butter, we're going to take some seasoned breadcrumbs. You don't have to measure this out. A couple tablespoons, just drop it down into the pan. And then we're going to shake it and make sure we get our breadcrumbs distributed over, again, the entire bottom and the sides. Another extra added layer of protection that our rice will not stick to the pan when we try to take this out later. So just kind of give it a swirl, get all your sides coated. If you've got extra breadcrumbs hanging out, not a big deal. Just tap it off into the garbage. Now, we need 4 eggs. To that, we're going to add 1 1/4 cup of freshly shredded Romano cheese. We're going to whisk that up, get it all combined. And to that, we are going to add in our nicely cooled rice. Little word of caution, now that your rice is cooled, it is ridiculously sticky. So I might put a little bit of water on my hands just to help the rice not stick to me. Get this stirred in. I highly recommend don't do it with a whisk like I'm doing here. I don't know why I didn't switch out for a spoon. It's fine. It's just going to stick inside of your whisk. But get it all combined, and then we can start forming our rice shell. Again, make sure your hands are a little bit damp. Otherwise, the rice is going to stick to you and not to the pan like you want it to. Our goal is to get about a 1/2 inch thick layer around the bottom and up the sides. Is it going to be 100% perfectly a 1/2 inch all the way around the bottom of the sides? Probably not. Don't worry about it. As long as it's a relatively thick layer that's going to hold that filling in. See that filling in the back? It's reducing nicely. It looks pretty cool. All right, so up the sides, and again, you want to get it all the way up the sides. So all the way up to the top of your springform pan. Make sure you have rice. Very important because we're going to close this all in later, and you're going to want to make sure that you've got the sides and the top meeting so you can seal off that layer. Now for the fun part, the cheesy layer. We're going to put some provolone cheese, just get some deli slices, and we're going to line the bottoms and up the sides with some provolone cheese. You can get it at your deli counter, you can just buy prepackaged slices, whatever works best for you. Make sure you get it up the sides as well. You're probably going to have to cut the cheese in half, not a big deal. Make sure you make a nice seal with your cheese. If you see any holes, take any extra bits of cheese that you have and plug up those holes with the cheese. This is kind of like an extra added layer of protection that our filling's not going to soak through our rice. It's still probably going to happen, but we're going to do our best to prevent that. So we're going to take our extra cheese and fill in any holes that we have. Now, our filling's been simmering away for about 25 minutes. This looks perfect. We still have some moisture going on, but it's not soupy. That basil looks gorgeous. All right, so about 3/4 of our filling we are going to put down inside of our rice shell. You want to leave about 1/4 to a 1/2 inch from the top, because again, we're going to have to put that rice layer over the top, so make sure you have room. But, about 3/4 of your filling should go down in. Get it all nicely smoothed out. And now it's time to seal this little guy up. But first, cheese. More cheese. This was not in my brother's original recipe. And I thought that was weird. Because it's like, well, I have a cheesy layer on the bottoms and the side. Why don't I have a cheesy layer on the top? It just didn't make sense. So I'm going to do that extra layer of protection against my filling coming up through the top by putting a layer of cheese over my filling. Made sense to me. Plus, as we all know, cheese is good. So, fill up any holes that you have. Again, it's probably still going to come through a little bit, not a big deal. Once your cheesy layer is done, you're going to add the rest of your rice to the top. Make sure, as you're going along, that you kind of seal up the edges. Push it together where the top meets the sides. You know what I'm saying? Just kind of make sure you have a nice seal there. Get all of our rice down over our top. This looks fantastic. Okay. Once you've got all the rice in there, kind of smooth it out. Make sure your edges are nice and sealed. And then for the final step, a little bit more Romano cheese, just grated down nicely over the top. I'm just going to use a zester. No need to pull out the big box grater again. And we're just going to spot grate this right down where we need it. Make sure you get the sides. It's going to be a little messy, not a big deal. Then this is going to go in a 450-degree oven. As you preheat it, make sure you have a rimmed baking sheet in there heating up as well. Put it on the baking sheet, let it go for about 20 to 25 minutes until you achieve this. It's nice and golden. We do have a little bit of breakthrough filling, you can see there on the top, not a big deal, but this is your goal. Now, very important step. After it has cooled for at least 5 minutes, you're gonna take a knife, a thin knife, and you're gonna insert that between your timbale and the side of the pan. You just wanna make sure that it has fully released, so that when you try to take the sides off, you have no problem. I usually go around twice. First time around, I'm a little cautious. I kind of give it a little push here and there just to make sure it's released. This is actually feeling fantastic. There's like no effort here whatsoever. Second time through, I usually just give it a spin. If it spins without resistance like it's doing now, I know this is gonna release perfectly. At least I can hope, right? All right, so we've gone around twice. Fingers crossed. We're gonna release the sides. And perfect. Look at that. That is a thing of beauty. I've got some nice caramelization going on with my cheese. Absolutely gorgeous. The only thing left to do is try to take a piece out. So we're gonna take a knife, make sure you cut down all the way to the bottom. You wanna make sure you cut through that bottom layer of rice as well, just again, to ensure it all comes out in one big piece. This seems like, if you can see it, it's kind of moving on its own. I'm still gonna make sure I got all the way down to the bottom, but then I'm gonna take my thinnest spatula that I have. I'm gonna try to get this out in one nice piece. It feels good. It feels like it's gonna go. This looks absolutely perfect. Now, is my rice the same thickness all the way around? No. Is that okay? Absolutely. Doesn't matter. Still tastes fantastic. So if you decide to make this for a special occasion or just a weekend dinner, let us know what you think. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next week.